disconnected again. Okay. Okay, hopefully we're right. So today I've got a few things. I still haven't sorted out the purse I want to do, the zippered pouch. So I want to do something like, as I've already mentioned, some of the work that Bec's been doing has really inspired me in the last week or so. Like, really inspired me. And I spent a week just chasing after fabrics and textiles and vintage bits and pieces so I can do a similar style. And I was really taken with her needle books and her zippered pouches and her huswife and all these things. So I've gathered some stuff. I'm finding it difficult to make that leap. So I'm struggling to. I mean, look, I bought a couple of packs from Bec from Be. So I bought a couple. Got this one. I've got this one. So these are big. These are the larger. I mean, I've taken the stuff in behind there. I've taken these out a few times. These are larger packs. So that's a bit of a kickstart. I've also got this bit of cut a quilt, and I got a scrap pack the other day and a couple of other things. I've got more yo-yos here. Got more yo-yos here. I've got another smaller pack of yo-yos somewhere. But I'm still struggling to take that leap of faith and get something started. The first largish project I want to do is one of the zippered pouches. So what I've got is, I bought some zips. So I've got some of the neon zips here from Bec. And I'd like to do, I think, I'm not sure, I want to do something like, possibly not this one, but I want to use half of one of these as one half of the zippered pouch. Now, one of the things I'm struggling with is I'm not entirely sure yet if I'm just going to make a standalone zippered pouch, or if I want to make it so I can add it into a huswife or a needlebook or a folded book thingy. So my dilemma with this is, if I want to make this to put in a book, and the way I want to do it, I don't want to, one half I want to have as the doily, the other half I want to do as an embroidered collagey, patchworky embroidery thing on the back side or the front side, or vice versa. So my dilemma is, if I do that, if I want to have it so it can be set into the needle book, do I want to have this left? You know, I don't want to chop that off, I don't think. So what I'm thinking is, if I set the zipper in here somewhere, and then just leave that flap so it can hang out of the book, or it can fold back over. So that's one dilemma. The second one is, if I just do a standalone pouch, I think I could just do it the same way, to be honest. I could just have that flap fold over. I hadn't thought of that until now. So there's the first bit. The other thing is, I want to use these either vintage or vintage style fabrics reproduction fabrics that I have. So I want it all to sort of match in with that. I want it to all pull together. And I'm really struggling with that. I don't normally struggle with things like this, probably because I'm not normally too concerned about pulling them together. I just throw it together and, oh, that works. It's very, very rare that it doesn't work. But I'm quite aware that I want this to work really well. So I'm getting myself a bit anxious about it. The second thing I want to talk about is, I don't know if you saw yesterday's video. I started off with one of the little needle books, and again, Bec did one. She used a scrap of fabric that she really liked and just created this little needle book. So I had this piece of, this was just a square, see here, this square of linen that I had, and that's all I had, just this square. And I had this piece of purple blanket in. It was a little bit longer, so I cut, here you go, I cut that bit off. That was it, that was all I had in the purple, but it's lovely felted wool. And I wanted to keep this a bit vintagey, so I've stuck the embroidered bit on the front, and then I filled in the gap with a bit of vintage fabric of my Nan's, and I wrapped that around, and then I decided to line it with a pretty little piece. It's got the pink and the mauve in there. Now, that's not vintage, maybe a reproduction, but it's one that I got when I used to work in the quilt shop. I can't remember what it is. I've got a whole range there. A little bit miffed that I didn't bring this over far enough, but I think I like it. As you can see, I've stuck a bit of lace there. I sewed down this bottom edge so you can use it as a pocket. We've got a wool sleeve. Now this piece of wool was another piece of wool. I bought a scrap pack of wool, felted wool, last week, and this was another piece that was in it. I'm not finished this yet. I'd like to sew something on here. I don't know what. I thought of embroidering something with wool, but then I decided I don't want to do that because it's time consuming. I have used this green stitch I've done, the blanket stitch, is a gum nuts yarn. And I got that out to show you. Here it is. So that was this gum nuts. It's a pure wool. 648 is the colour. It's a hand-dyed pure new wool made in Australia. Gum nuts yarn from the Daisies range. And of course my camera won't focus on it. Oh, that'd be asking too much, wouldn't it? So that's the green I used to blanket stitch around that. And then I've used this mauve on the other side, and it's a cascade. It's a crewel wool from Cascade House, Australia again. Colour 4570. So that's what I've stitched to that's what I've used to blanket stitch around this. I put this binding on, as you can see. Now that is not binding, it's not cut on the bias. I only had a small square of that fabric, but I liked that colour, so I turned that into a piece of binding. What I want to do is, as I said, I'd like to stitch a bit of fabric on here. Don't know whether to put something down there and cover that or not. I'm not decided yet, but I wanted to stitch a little accent of something in here. And then I was going to make a rolled linen button and do needle weaving over the top of it. But then I found these in my little stash, and these little guys actually look quite good on it, I think. Little mother of pearl. So we've got this little one. Or this is just a nice little vintage mother of pearl button. Or another little It's got a lot of flash in it, this one. A little vintage mother of pearl. Another, this one's even older again, I can tell because of how close together and tiny those holes are. Another little vintage mother of pearl. This one's cute because it's sort of faceted. Can you see that? It sort of comes to a point like a little pyramid, I guess. It's three-sided. So there's that one. But then I've got this little guy, which has got a little, it sort of comes up to it like a pyramid and then it's got a flat top on it. Or this teeny tiny little one. And I actually think I like these tiny ones the best. This little teeny tiny one. Or this one's very interesting. If I can get it to balance on there. It's a little rectangular mother of pearl on a shaft. And I had another little, they're all a little bit different to each other, from each other. Or this guy, one of them, and I can't see which one it is now, one of them had a blue tone to it. So there's just some options that I pulled out of my jar over here. And I think, I'd love to know your opinion. I think the tiny ones look the best, and I'm leaning towards either this rectangular one or one of these tiny little, ones. And I'll just do a woven bar loop from linen to pull around it, I think. And that's my little tiny little Bec inspired scrap needle book. So that one's fairly well almost done. But I'd love to know your opinion of which button you think I should use on that. Let me know in the comments. That would be great. So I'll just put, this is one of my beautiful vintage linen threads I have. These came in, I had a box of these. I've given some away now though, and I'm kicking myself. I have no idea what it is. I can't find the box at the moment, it's packed away. But it's the most beautiful, almost raw linen thread. I love it. Right. So another thing I wanted to show you is I've pinned this out. Here's a bit of wadding. This feels like bamboo. When I was working in the quilt store, I was allowed to bring home the offcuts from the quilts. If the customer didn't want them, they would let me bring home the offcuts. So I'm almost at the end of my bag of wadding. And this is one of the pieces that was in there. What I wanted to show you, I've got this piece of this vintage fabric that I've pinned to it. It's a Joshua Hoyle British fabric. You can see there. And what I wanted to show you was, at this point I'm wanting to baste this onto this wadding. And I thought I'd show you how I do that, because there's a bit of a trick to it. I'm just going to use this inexpensive cotton thread for this because it does pretty well get discarded. It won't stay there. I don't know where I put my scissors now. I've got another pair somewhere. So I will cut a bit of this cotton, again just an inexpensive, someone's given me that. It's thin, it's not one of my favourite cottons. Then I want a needle. Don't ask me what kind of needle because I'm just picking one out of my needle case. And I can't remember at the moment what's what, which is which. I should have put my glasses on, I think. I've left them inside. So thread the needle and I've managed to get a knot in the end of that before I've even... That's how bad that thread is. That just pulled off. Okay, so for basting. You want to start around the middle. And I want that tail to come through. That's what I'm trying to do at the moment. There we go. So start in the middle, and I'm trying to sort of make sure it's flat as I'm going, and about stitches about 1 inch apart or just under 1 inch apart, and I'm just working my way out towards the edge. Try and have a fairly straight line. I am catching that wadding at the back. I know I am, I can feel it, and I'm using the mat to guide me. So I don't know if you can see, but there are actually tacking threads at the back there. I just continue basting until I get up to the edge. And then this is a bit of a lazy method. You should be coming from the center out, and then actually I will do it the correct way. I'll just put a couple of tacking stitches at the end there. Don't pull it too tight like I did just then. I can take that needle, that pin out now, cut it off, and then I'll turn it around. This is where I started the first time. I'll do another, quilter's knot's a good one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm starting, that's the knot where I started. So I come about 1 inch away and start working outwards in the opposite direction. Again, smoothing it as I go. I did press this, but I had it rolled up in my project bag. Don't pull it too tight because you don't want it to pucker, but then don't be too loose either. I've got a knot there already. This is why I hate this cotton. One reason I don't like it anyway. And of course that knot won't come out. Usually, often you can just slide it. It doesn't help that I don't have my glasses on. So what I'll do, that might still pull through, yeah. So that still went through. I just pulled that knot through, and now I'm just going to do a double one. That's too tight. Pull that out. We don't want it that tight. Ah, there we go. 1, 2. That knot just came out, would you believe? There we go. Couple of little tacking stitches there to hold that in. Cut it off, leave a little bit of a tail. And then, depending on the size of it, but sometimes I will go get a knot, find that rough center section again and start and work out in this direction now. Again, I just want a couple of tacking stitches. I'm just going over the same spot there to hold that in place, because these will all be pulled out again later. And then again, turning it around. Need another piece of thread, cotton. As a general rule, when you're stitching, this is a little bit different. You should only cut your thread from your thumb to your elbow long. There's several reasons for that. One reason is so it reduces the chance of it knotting. Another reason is, as you're stitching, as you're pulling your thread through the fabric, even if you've got the correct needle, the thread will fatigue. It gets worn out and the thread starts to fray, and then it's more likely to knot and break. So the shorter you've got your working thread, the easier it is to work with and the better condition it will stay in. It's a pain to keep swapping, I know, but to have a nice working thread, that's how it's done. I've cut this piece very long, so I'm at the edge of that wadding. So I'm just going to do a couple of tacking stitches again. There we go, cut that off. Now I'm going to come back. I need another knot. I'm doing a lazy knot here, they're not good knots. Now, just watching my coffee, I don't want my fabric in my coffee. I've already spilled one this one. Actually, Willow walked past and wagged her tail. My coffee cup was full and it went flying across the table inside. So now, where we did the first run, we come down about an inch and start again. Working outwards towards the edge of the fabric. And again, I'm smoothing this with my hand as I go. You may need to take your pins out because I can feel here, see here it's puckering. So that will have to come out. And that's why I sort of try and smooth as I go. At the end of that, I'm at the end of the wadding again. The wadding ends right here. So I'm just going to do a couple of holding stitches. 1, 2, 3. And again, I'll cut that off. Turn it around and go in the opposite direction. Now this may seem laborious and time consuming, but it is worth it, trust me. The amount of times I omitted this step and my work would end up so puckered up and non-usable. So this is worth it, worth this step. Again, smoothing with my left hand as I go. It's not the straightest of lines that I'm laying down here. As long as it's, you know, relatively straight and hold your fabric where you want it to be, that's all you need to worry about. Cut that, these scissors are a bit worn out. Another knot. Turn it around. I'm going to go on the opposite side now and work out again. That pin can come out because it's moving around anyway. And again, smoothing as I go. There are a lot of birds out today, aren't there? I love working outside. The sun's shining, there's a bit of a breeze. I'd work outside here. I work outside here more than I work inside, I think, especially when it's warmer. So again, come into the end, take that pin out to make sure it's all smoothed down, and a couple of holding stitches. 1, 2, 3 in the end there. I only got 2 because the needle came out. Snip that off. Need some more cotton. My pin is stuck to my scissors. Okay, thread the cotton again. Thread the needle with the cotton would be better, wouldn't it? Okay, put a knot in the cotton. And we're going in the opposite direction now. Now I can see this bottom side here is starting to pucker, so I'm going to pull those other pins out, smooth it out with my hand and start from the center. And again, work outwards towards the edge. Making sure that crease isn't puckered. It feels smooth, so we should be right. I probably should have pressed it again, to be honest, with an iron. Got another knot. There we go. I got all set up out here earlier and was about to turn the camera on. I could hear Willow at the front door, and then all of a sudden I heard Willow has speech buttons. This is a little bit puckered here, so I need to be aware of that as I'm stitching. It's not terrible, I can it just feels a little bit off to me. So I suddenly heard a speech button, hungry. I said, okay, just let me finish this little bit that I'm getting set up and I will come and feed you. Then I heard soon. Yes, Bubby, soon. I'll be there soon. Hungry. I know, sweetheart. So I had to get up and get her breakfast. I haven't been feeding her at the same time every day because she hasn't been eating well. She's a bit stressed at the moment. So the fact that she asked for food, I got up and fed her. I pulled that a little bit hard then, so I'm just pulling it out to make sure we don't end up with puckering. Now I just keep going in this fashion until all of this fabric is basted and tacked down on this. Now you're probably wondering why I'm doing this. I'm not entirely sure yet. The first thought I had was to do Kantha stitch on it, or a Kantha style stitch, and then lay down some vintage bits and pieces, but now I'm not sure. Not sure what I want to do. Take that pin out. Keep smoothing as we go. The flies are coming. I don't know why. I've got a cup of coffee there. I don't have any garbage around. I checked. I had a blowfly hang around yesterday. So I checked all through the house to make sure I hadn't forgotten to take any garbage out. Cleared the kitchen out. I couldn't find anything. So I don't know why there is a blowfly hanging around. Okie dokie, there's still a bit to go. I'm just going to start from down here this time. Now this is probably a huge piece of fabric for what I have in mind. I was hoping to use this for a needlebook or a huswife or something. It's probably, this fabric would probably be better as a lining fabric, but I thought it was such a pretty vintage fabric. I wanted to try and showcase some of it somehow, and I thought using it as a bit of a background may have worked, but yeah, I'm not sure now. I need some more cotton. I'm trying to embrace, what does Bec say? Embrace the wonk. Embrace the wonk. Trying to make these a bit rustic looking. Make sure they look like they're handmade. And I've been trying to think to myself as I've been stitching, what would my grandmother or my great-grandmother have done? How would they have created these things? What materials would they have used? Which pieces of fabric would they have salvaged? It was very likely that they would have recycled fabrics. It's very unlikely that they would have gone out and purchased new fabrics just to do things like this, or the needlebook. That's what I was thinking the whole time I was doing the needlebook. What would my gran have done? Now, I didn't know it at the time, but my grandmother, who I've named my Instagram and my YouTube and everything after both of my grandmothers, Gladys and Maud. And my grandmother Gladys was a dressmaker, and she was also a buyer for David Jones for many years. So some of the fabrics I've got are old. So DJs used to have a fabric department back in the day. I remember going in there. Well, she used to be a buyer for the China section too, actually. But some of the fabrics I still have of Nan's, and this is one, I believe this was probably from DJ's, this fabric. But I have a lot of suiting, wool suiting, and some of it has been attacked by silverfish. Some of it's still okay. But yeah, Nan used to be a buyer for DJ's, and she was a dressmaker, but she specialised in wedding gowns. And Nan used to teach me, I mean, from ever since I can remember, from a little girl, I remember sitting with her in her dining room at her dining table with the old Minerva sewing machine, which I still have, and watching what she did. I remember when I was very little, I used to play with the pins, and I'd get all the buttons out and sort the buttons into colours or count them, and I would go through her fabrics because she had wardrobes and boxes and all sorts of things full of fabrics and old patterns. Mind you, I never saw her use a pattern. What we used to do, I remember as I got older, we had Dolly magazine, for example, and if they did a special on the formal for school, you're going to your formal, and they'd show some, you know, the latest fashion in dresses, the bubble skirt or something like that, the drop-waisted lace dress, things like this. And I remember we couldn't afford to buy them, and Nan always said to me, you bring me a picture and I'll make it for you. And I remember for my year 6 formal, I wanted this drop waist lace dress. It was yellow of all colours. I hate yellow now, I don't know why. And had a drop waist with a very heavily pleated skirt, and yeah, just is covered in this lace. So I took her a photograph and she made it for me, and it was almost identical to the image. The only difference was it wasn't the same lace, but it was nice all the same. And it turned out she used one of her curtains, her lace curtains, to make the dress for me. So the yellow lace was her lace curtains. Yeah, so she also taught me how to mend, darning. She taught me always have linen tea towels, and I still to this day collect linen tea towels because you can repair them, you can darn them and patch them, and I still do to this day do that. So she taught me about that. She taught me how when your bed sheets wear out, so you know they'll often wear in the middle, and she would cut them down the middle and take the outsides and turn them in and sew them down the middle again, and then get a bit more use out of them. When that wore out, she'd cut them up to make pillowcases. Nothing was ever wasted. And I didn't realise at the time that she was recycling and upcycling, and I mean, it was out of necessity. It wasn't trendy then, it was out of necessity. And yeah, she's the person who's inspired me to do what I do. So after all that big long story, when I'm making things like this, I try and think of what she would do, how she would do it, what she would use. It's a bit puckered there, let's pull that out. We don't have a great deal left to go, we're nearly done. Another thing she used to do was recycle her woolen jumpers. So my father is one of 4, so there were 4 boys, and Nan used to make all their clothes, and she'd knit all their jumpers for them. And if they outgrew their jumpers, she would undo them or frog them and I would sit there with her and help her wind up all that yarn into balls of wool again, and she would reuse it and knit something else. I'm trying to think of what else she used to do. She used to do a lot of alterations for people. She had a hand-painted sign out the front of her house that said dressmaker, and it's quite wonky, and I've still got it. It's actually hanging in the lounge room. I might share that one day. Oops, I can hear Willow. She's finished playing. Willow's normally with me all the time, and even I don't usually even let her go in the backyard on her own, but she's been a bit playful today, and I'm not feeling 100%, so I'm a bit concerned about going out and playing with her when I'm feeling like this, because the last time I did go and play with her when I was feeling like this, I ended up with a concussion. So I've left her out the back on her own, out the side. I can hear her. I can just see her when she comes up to the gate. But I never leave her unless I'm with her, so I'm constantly looking over and checking. I can hear her, like I said. She's come back up to the gate. She'll call out in a minute. She'll tell me that she's ready to come back up. Willow has her own Instagram account if you'd like to see her. It's at Willow the Great Dane. I will put a link in the description later if you'd like to have a look. It's nothing exciting. You can just have a look and see what I'm talking about if you're interested. Okay, so that side's done. Unless I might have to go up the top there yet. Yeah, haven't done the other end yet. I've got to do this bit. Yep, we're rattling the gate. We want to come back up, Mum. She's worked out, I had to put a lock on that gate because she's worked out how to open it. A clever little bug. I'm still smoothing as I'm going here. Oops, lost the needle now. All I've got to do now is, I think, one last row on this side. Bit more cotton. Yep, here we are. We're starting to crawl out. Okay. We're on the home run. And I've still got just under an inch gap down here, so I might just run, doing a bit of a naughty. Instead of starting from the middle, I'm just going to run along this edge. I don't know if you can see. You can see where the wadding ends, so I'm just going to do a tacking stitch or a basting stitch right along that edge there. make sure it's not pulling like that did, because I got it caught. And there we go. Oops, I've lost the tail. I was getting excited, getting close to the end, and I got a bit too excited. Okay, now I'm just going to do that 1, 2, 3. No, I'll leave it there then because it come out again. So there we go. There is your basting. Now I know, I know through the lens it looks crumpled. It's not. If I go and press that, I run my hands over, it's very smooth. You can have a look at the back. That's a very wide border around there. I might end up trimming that back because it will get in the road when I'm stitching. This width, this is usually more than enough. Even if I decide to turn it over, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. So I will probably start doing some Kantha stitch. I am wondering if I will use, I'm not sure. Will I use this linen? It's a bit chunky. For such a delicate fabric, it may be a bit too much. I don't know. I think I like it actually. I mean, I could use this. This is a huge contrast in comparison. So this is a top stitch. I'm pretty sure it's a top stitch, a Gutermann. 100% cotton. It's quite thick. I'm pretty sure it's a top stitch. I could use that. Or I could use this linen. I don't know if you can see, it's actually got a slub in it as well. So it's quite organic. It's like it's a commercially spun flax, but it's still quite organic. I suppose we could give it a try and see how it looks. The next question is, if I'm going to do Kantha stitch, do I go across or up and down? I feel like if I'm going to be making it into if it's going to be a wrap like this, a needlebook of sorts, I feel like I want to go this direction. So let's have a look. Here's the linen. I need to find a suitable needle. I've cut out some fabric there to make some more finger pin cushions too. I haven't made any for years. That's going to be too chunky, that needle. This is a coarse thread. It's very coarse. I'm not convinced. Let's do a bit of a 2, 3 quilter's knot. Maybe not. It doesn't want to pull through. Yeah, there we go. And I think I'll start towards one end, hey? Again, I'm starting from the middle so I can work outwards to ensure that I don't get that puckering. Now, something else I want to show you that I do, a bit of a trick. I'm going to over further. I'm going to draw a line on my fabric to follow. And then maybe, I'm not sure if I'll continue, that was about 1/4 inch, so every 1/4 inch. That's not very dark, is it, the second one? Let's have another go. I also want to make sure I'm keeping that level with that edge. So it's another little trick I use. Sometimes people say to me, how do you get your lines so straight? That's how. No, I don't often do a true, yeah, this linen's not going to work. That is quite... That is very difficult to pull through. So, instead of using that, the other thing I can use is that's too chunky. Cut that knot off at the back and let's pull him out. That's not for today. The other thing I can use, because I think this top stitch will be a little bit too fine. This is just a small fraction of the crochet cottons I've got. It's a good colour, but it's a bit fine. Number 40. I usually like must be number 20 I usually use. I thought it was a different number. I like that one, but I don't want that colour. That's a cotton. I mean, they're all cotton, but that's like a brushed, a polished. I wish I could find the other bags. I've got bags of these. I might use this one. This one's already open, and it's the colour I want, so I'll use this, I think. Now a lot of this collection of crochet cottons started from my grandmother, and then I've had people give them to me. I've had friends as they've passed away leave them to me, and a lot of them I've also bought at the second-hand shop. So if I see them, I haven't bought any for a while because I've got a box full, to be honest. I don't need any. But there was a stage where if I saw them at the second-hand shop for a very reasonable price, I would pick them up. Let's do that. Quilting knot, quilter's knot. Yeah, that's much better. Well, let's try again. Now, you can, if you so wish, put this in a hoop to work it. I often forego the hoop because I like to be able to manipulate the fabric. Now I don't necessarily do a correct Kantha stitch because it's sort of like this. You manipulate the fabric and do this and then pull it through. I don't like the lack of control. So I usually don't do any more than one at a time, because what I find for me, if I do that correct Kantha stitch, I don't catch the back at the angle I want it to, and I don't end up getting the effect that I want. So it's a bit more time consuming. It does become a bit laborious, and sometimes I actually go like one like this and then check the back and then come up. Especially if I'm doing a double-sided piece, I make sure the lines are all straight and lined up on the front and the back. But for this instance, I will just do the one stitch at a time, like this. Now I think at this rate I will do Kantha stitch on this. Whether I cover it all first and then come and do some applique, I'm not sure. I am starting to think I may do some applique and then Kantha around it, but otherwise I'm going to be spending a hell of a lot of time doing this stitch all over. But that is how I prepare and do my Kantha stitch, especially on larger pieces. Make sure that we don't end up with puckered fabric, or it will be less puckered than if we didn't baste it. Now if you're worried about the biro that I've drawn on there, for those who aren't aware, see that's puckering already, so I need to pull that out. It is a friction pen, so as soon as I iron it, that will disappear. Just having a drink of my cold coffee. I've still haven't gotten any further with working out my needle books or the zippered pouch. One thing I had considered that I didn't mention, I would like to be able to, and I don't know if this will work, I'd like to be able to stop talking because that's noisy. I'd like to be able to line one of my zippered pouches with one of these fabrics, I think. So should I choose the fabric and then get the other pieces that I want to do the outside with to complement the fabric? Or should I do the outside first and then if one of the fabrics don't work, get another piece of fabric? I don't know. I'm frustrating myself because I just want to get it started. Yeah, so anyway, that's how I start my Kantha stitched, running stitched pieces. I'm not going to call it borrow because that's not actually a type of stitch. It's a whole what's the word, not lifestyle, it's a whole heritage, it's a whole a technique that doesn't happen. It's not exactly something you can reproduce. It's something that's passed down through generations, and even the pieces are worked on again and again and again. So borrow is not the correct term, but hopefully this may have helped you today. You may have learned something. I'd love to know what you think about my little needlebook and which button I should put on there. Which button? I'm still leaning towards either this little rectangular one or one of these tiny ones. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know. Leave a comment below. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I hope I was able to share something with you today that you didn't already know. And I hope something may have inspired you to either get back to stitching or have a go yourself, or have a look for some vintage pieces or second-hand pieces that you might be able to use. Until next time, thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you later.